Welcome to the webinar series for businesses that want to survive and thrive during the coronavirus crisis of 2020. We're calling this Healthier Businesses, sponsored by PhD Retirement Consulting and the Better Business Bureau of Greater Kansas City. Because we don't just want to be having better businesses, we want them to be healthier as well. This webinar series is relying currently on the expertise of three different resources: the medical director of Johnson County. For those watching online later, that's Johnson County, Kansas, as well as the resources from the Better Business Bureau of Greater Kansas City, and then PhD Retirement Consulting. Today we have with us Marvin Carolina, the President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Greater Kansas City, as well as Mercedes Gibbons of PhD Retirement Consulting. We have questions today which some have been emailed and some have been tweeted to us. And you're certainly welcome to send us questions for upcoming webinars, or you could simply reply in the comment section below. Certainly, if you have questions related to the medical aspects of how the virus is impacting our community, you're welcome to email those directly to Mercedes. Dr. Jacobson will be joining us for our next series. So without further ado, I know that there's a lot of relief programs out there for small businesses. Can either of you speak to maybe what advice you have about those various programs, and maybe speak through some of those?
Troy, if I could jump in first I want to hopefully everyone's safe out there and everyone's doing well right now in this new age that we're going through right now. And I want to make sure that we're dealing with the stress and anxiety, and that we are addressing it. We're not letting it go. We're doing something, whether it's exercise, whether it's playing games at home, whatever that may be. The anxiety and stress is going to be a big part of our recovery and how we go through this thing. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about right now as far as finances and those type of things. If you are under high stress and anxiety, it's hard to do anything. You are literally paralyzed. So I hope that we are paying attention to the stress level and keeping it down. Any cough or any choking or any feeling different, we're in a panic. I coughed the other day, and my wife, my two sons kind of looked at me. I was like, I was just drinking water, and I drank it too fast. So anything we can do, the jokes, the laughing, all of those things to kind of keep the stress level down, I would say, first let's make sure we concentrate on that. And another thing, we're all in this together. Usually when you see downturns in the economy and things are going wrong, it's industry specific. This is something across all industries, all sizes of business. No one's, not being impacted by this. So know that no one's in this alone. We're going in it together. We'll go through it together, and we'll come out the other side together. And the things I believe that we're going to talk about today is how do we come out the other side as we're going through it today, as we're in the middle of it, and then how we come out. So those are the things that I wanted to make sure we got out, that we care about people as individuals, and that we're trying to address that concern also.
Awesome. Now I know that in terms of relief, there's some packages out there in terms of SBA loans, payroll protection loans, things like that. Could either of you guys speak to the relief that we're talking about being literally right upon us? I mean, it's at hand. It's not something we're talking about 6 months down the road, but we're talking about pretty immediate relief through this package. Mercedes, you want to jump in and offer any insights or thoughts as to what small businesses should be doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of different programs. As you mentioned, the payroll protection program, or as it's been referred to as PPP. You also have the EIDL, or the Economic Disaster Loan Program, as well as grant program. And so I've been doing some research in these areas. My household has been impacted by this, as my wife is a small business owner. She's a hairstylist. And so I've been looking into this even for ourselves. But a couple things to keep in mind with the PPP program. It's built, and it has the term payroll protection in there, but it is for expenses outside of just payroll. It can be used for rent. utilities. It can also be used to service interest on a mortgage debt or existing debt that a business would have. And so, first and foremost, I would just encourage you, if you're a small business owner and you're not sure if this program or even the EIDL program are beneficial for you, first and foremost, I'd say try to connect with a local SBA or Small Business Administration lender that you know and trust. They may have a little bit more information, but at the same time, I have a banking background and I've worked in banks and done lending before, and I can tell you it's so early in this process, guys, that I think there's literally new information coming out daily. And so we're learning things probably just about as quickly as some of the folks that are bankers and lenders are learning this information. And so, but start the process. Again, I would encourage everybody, start the process, contact the lender, start the application. That's not binding you to anything, so to speak, but that will at least get the ball rolling so that, you're out ahead of this and all of a sudden not trying to jump into the pool, a few weeks down the road when they're swamped and inundated with everybody who did this yesterday, this week, or even today, which I know was a date where they were going to start kind of opening up the window for applications and whatnot. So.
Yeah, you could start today. Absolutely. And from what I understand, and I'm not a banker, but from what I understand, contacting the SBA.gov website or whatever would be a complete nightmare right now. You do need to go through your local lender. Not every bank is certified as an SBA lender. Marvin, I know you have some resources that would be available to those here in the Kansas City area. Do you have any advice for local businesses and who they should contact first?
I do. A couple of things that I want to touch on because there's so many acronyms and we're always going through all these things and PPP and all the rest of that. And we hear certain things. I don't know the answer to all of them, but when you hear the CARES Act relief, and what that stands for is Coronavirus Aid, Relief, Economic Security Act. So you're going to hear CARES Act, and that's what that stands for. And there's a ton of information that's coming out, and I'm pulling it up as we're talking right now. But there's a ton of information that we are trying to process. There are several banks in the Kansas City and surrounding areas that are accredited and are a part of our system. I'm trying to bring it up now as we talk. I'm going through different screens. But there's several of them, if I can bring this up here, that I had listed earlier that you can go through. First National Bank of Omaha is one of them. North Kansas City Bank is another one. Oh boy, let me see. Mazuma Bank is another one. Academy Bank is another one. So there's several banks that you have a choice from. If you have a banking relationship with a bank, that would probably be the first choice. Obviously, we have accredited banks that are part of our system, and we definitely encourage you to use them. Hopefully, at this point, everyone has a banking relationship. And these are things that you may not ever expect. Well, I really just kind of deposit and withdraw and deposit. This would be a good time to have a banking relationship that you could call your banker or somebody in that office who are familiar with you, and you can work through this process with them. So these are the things that I think are critical, is working with the bank. And Troy, to your point, not just going straight through the SBA, but working with the local bank that you know.
Absolutely.
And
another piece of the CARES Act, there is some alleviation for those who have money that's in a retirement plan in terms of being able to get that money out of their retirement plan. There's the lifting of the 10% penalty for an early withdrawal. If you're under 59 and a half years of age, you typically pay a 10% penalty. No longer the case. There's even this idea of being able to take a loan, but it's a forgivable loan that you wouldn't have to actually pay back to the 401k. Mercedes, we've lifted the 10% penalty. Is this a good idea? Should people be tapping into their 401k if they need money to get by right now? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is Marvin's thought earlier about, this has impacted everybody, and everybody's situation is a little bit different. But I would have to say, tapping your future retirement is option Z. You've done everything else. You've cut the budget. applied for relief loans, you've tapped an emergency. I mean, you've done everything, and there's no other option. Maybe consider it then, but no, I wouldn't suggest that. And I guess nothing that comes out of Washington is ever perfect for everybody, but this is one area in particular that I wish they would have not included that in the CARES Act. Again, simply because it's such a wealth building long-term tool. And again, I think while this will have a ripple effect for some time throughout the economy, we're not talking we're not going to be talking coronavirus and the impact of it on the economy 20 years down the road. People will be looking at their retirement account 20 years down the road. And I would hate and be heartbroken for folks that have tapped and pulled those resources out now because the 10% early withdrawal penalty is gone, to weather a short-term storm. And so again, there are things you can do, such as, a ton of different companies are hiring employees right now. And while obviously that may not replace a full-time income, it may help bridge the gap. Again, there are other things, hopefully people have margin in their lives and some savings. There's just some other things that I think I would highly recommend folks look into and address or utilize first before tapping into 401k retirement accounts. And it doesn't ignore the fact that if you pull that money out, they're still considered taxable income. So you would still pay taxes on it. They've just alleviated 10% of the penalty that you would normally have to pay to do that. So.
Sure. So what I'm hearing you say, and I would completely agree. It's certainly in some emergency situations, you've got to break the glass. You've got to go to that, but it should be like the last resort, like exhaust all the other options first. They've expanded unemployment coverage. And typically unemployment coverage didn't cover those that were in the gig economy, those who drove Uber, those who got 1099. A lot of people didn't typically have unemployment. Now almost everybody qualifies for unemployment. Plus they have these SBA loans, and they're actually forgivable loans. The PPP, which is money that you can get to cover your payroll. They actually take your monthly payroll, and it's 2.5 times your monthly payroll. So if you have $20,000 as your monthly payroll, you would qualify for $100,000. $50,000. How about that for good math, right? I just want to see if you're paying attention. But it allows you to have enough to cover payroll plus a little bit extra. So there's all those other relief programs. I think what we're saying is if every other option then is still exhausted and you're still having trouble paying the rent or whatever it is, Mercedes, then yeah, there is that option to tap into the retirement plan. I spoke with somebody. I want to get to another question, but I just want to say I spoke to somebody earlier. One of our clients was asking a question about this, and he said, "Well, I really probably need $6,000 just to get by." And I said, "Well, there's not going to be a limit on how many times you can dip in there and get this forgivable loan." I said, "Why don't you just take a little bit now? And then if it's still going on and you still have a need, 30, 60 days from now, go back and get a little bit more," and just trying to minimize the downside, because I'd hate, to your point, Mercedes, someone to get 20 years down the road and say, "Wow, I regret making that move." Marvin, let me switch gears just a little bit. I know we're all about hope and trying to encourage businesses. You're in touch with so many thousands of companies that are a part of the Better Business Bureau of Greater Kansas City. Can you share with us any creative ideas or thoughts you have for surviving and thriving in this community? I mean, have you heard about businesses that are doing some things to continue to keep the doors open, or maybe to work remotely, and how's that working, and maybe things that we can learn from?
Yeah, some of the biggest things, and we've heard this multiple times, hopefully, is that as you start your workday, start it the same way. Get up, shave, shower, whatever you do, get dressed. You're not going into the office. You're going into your office room, or at least your space at home. And you need to dress, or however you would regularly go into the office. You don't necessarily have to wear a coat and tie. You get dressed and go into that space at the same time that you regularly would. The things that I'm seeing is that there's been a long list, and I'm doing this too. There's a long list of things that I would love to do, but never had a chance to do them because I'm so busy going through emails, answering voicemails, going into meetings, and going in and out of the office. And now I don't have those things. So I get a chance to really be strategic. And what I'm hearing a lot of is one of it's technology. I really needed to improve my technology skills. So what they're doing now, they're taking webinars and they're doing seminars online to improve, whether it be just something easy as simple as Excel. I need better Excel. I need better computer skills overall. Things are evolving. And even, do you have updated information? I mean, do you have updated software or hardware? And here's the key to it. I can't afford any of that stuff right now. And people are telling me, I'm not even trying to buy it now. But when that time comes, I know what I need to do. And that's what I would encourage everyone. And there's different things that we're really trying to get better at. Cleaning out the warehouse, updating our inventory, checking our equipment. There's a host of things that people are doing, even understanding more things about their human resource area. What are different things that they could do better as far as training? What are training courses that each one of their staff, whether they have a staff of 20 or a staff of 2, what are training things that they're doing? Going over their structure, going over their accounting and finances. Obviously, people are going over that. What are the things that they could have done different and better? They've been trying to put away reserves. Also, from an operational standpoint, what they're doing is understanding their products and services. What products and services offer the best margin? What product and service offer the least margin? What did I sell more of? What did I sell less of? And understanding that model and building a strategy around, when we come out of this, will you continue to sell the same product, or will you try to change into something else? Sometimes we're just in it, we can't stop it. We have our income and we can't stop it. Those are just a few tidbits of things that people are looking at because they have this downtime that they're just not accustomed to. Most business owners, and particularly small business owners, don't have this type of downtime to fix, adjust, improve many of the things that they really want to. And with this time, they're really taking advantage of that. To be proactive. It's easy to sit back and be upset and be disappointed, but really to get on top of the things that you really want. And one of the other things, and then you can go on to some more questions, is we don't have a lot of thinking and processing time. And when I talk to people, I say, just sit there for a second. How would you do your business differently? You have a chance to press a reset button. What are the things, man, if I'd have started this business over, if I had a chance to reset, if I had a chance to adjust, what would I do? Because that time is right now. You can adjust, change, reset anything that you want about your business. And that's what they're really jumping in on wholeheartedly.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that's interesting about the way we're all changing the way we do business is the way in which we engage with one another, and working remotely is different. And here we're on a Zoom meeting right now. I'd wager very, very few of us had ever even heard of Zoom like a month ago. And now everybody's doing Zoom meetings all the time. It's crazy. We're all Zooming. I heard a new term just yesterday. A Zoom bomber. A Zoom bomber is someone who bombs into your Zoom meeting and tries to hijack it. There is such a thing. People love it. Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy environment that we're in. I've had a couple of companies that we're engaged with who have talked about, hey, can we put off that meeting like for a month until we can meet in person? What if we're not meeting in person in a month? I think people are going to become increasingly accustomed to the idea of doing all of this stuff by Zoom. I mean, literally, you and I can talk to each other face to face. I can read your facial expressions, which is a huge part of, by the way, that's a huge element of communication. Like if I'm only hearing you and I'm not able to read your face, it's a little harder for us to communicate. But right now, you and I can communicate just as well as if we were across the board table from each other. And as we become more comfortable with this, we're going to continue doing business. We're not going to say, let's just push a pause on business. I think that's going to be important for businesses, for business owners, for companies to kind of say, we have to operate as if this is the new normal for a period of time in this virtual reality. Switching gears just a little bit, Mercedes, I've got a question for you. I know that there's some alleviation for homeowners or business owners and individuals, and it revolves around this idea of, how we structure debt. some relief maybe to student loan debt, some relief to mortgage debt. Interest rates right now, crazy, right? Should we be refinancing? I mean, do you have any advice on that type of thing? Should we be restructuring our debt situation right now?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and one that has come up quite frequently, and I'm involved in some different groups and chats, and again, definitely a question that is top of mind for a lot of folks. I'll start off by saying I think it depends, because there's really two camps. There's, again, we've had a loss or a change in income, and then we're just working from home, but our income situation hasn't changed. Yes, interest and mortgage rates are historically low right now. And so if you're in the camp of our income hasn't changed, and you've maybe been in your home loan for at least 4 years, by all means, I definitely think it doesn't hurt to reach out to your existing lender and to maybe see what options you have available. Of course, I would encourage you to, if you are restructuring debt, not to if you've been in your home 4, 5, 6, 7 years, not to refinance to another 30-year, but start looking at maybe a 15-year mortgage, because again, rates are just significantly lower right now, probably relative to the last time you did a loan. So again, I think if you're in that camp, yeah, by all means, it makes sense to at least see what that looks like. If you're in the other camp of there's been a loss or change in income, now may not be the time to necessarily look at refinancing. But there are lenders out there that are doing loan modifications. So again, kind of under the similar vein I said earlier, start the conversation. Reach out to your existing lender. Find out what programs they may have available. Be sure that you reference, I'm calling because or my situation has been impacted because of the coronavirus or because of COVID-19. Again, coming from the banking world, it's oftentimes those programs exist, but unless you say some specific wording, they're not necessarily going to be prompted just to say, hey, I've lost income. Can I get a modification? If you don't necessarily say the specific words, coronavirus, COVID-19, they're going to say, sorry, we don't have any programs. You say those words, all of a sudden it kicks in. And again, they're not trained to necessarily teach you to say, well, it depends. Are you affected because of this or because of this? And so know that if you do call, but also keep in mind, oftentimes modification programs, you're still being charged interest. Interest is maybe not waived, even if you called your lender and said, I've been impacted by coronavirus. Is there something you could do? And they say, oh, we'll modify your loan or allow you to skip a payment or 2 payments. Again, oftentimes they're not saying that payment's not due. They may just be tacking it on the back end of your loan or essentially delaying it for a couple months, but you still may accrue interest and other things of that nature. So just be sure you're definitely aware and you understand the details of what is being offered, so that, again, you don't get a surprise down the road.
Great advice. I want to circle back to one other thing, and that's just because it's on the minds of so many people. When it comes to the SBA loans, and you probably said this, I just wanted to make sure we clarified it for our listeners. There is such a thing as a disaster recovery loan. Okay, so this is the SBA loan that actually has to be repaid. You can immediately get somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000 like within the next few days. Like it's something you quickly can get, and it will be paid back at a very, very low SBA loan rate. Okay. That's different than the PPP. The PPP is for the payroll protection. It's really designed to try to help make sure that you don't lay anybody off. So if you had a bunch of employees, your business is cut in half, you can't afford to keep those employees, they don't want you to lay them off. So they're going to say, if your payroll was XYZ, whatever it is, take it by 2.5 times. It took me the longest time to figure out what was the 0.5. It's because they've structured this over a 10-week period type of a deal where you have to use 80% of it at least to cover payroll cost, but the other 0.5 can be used. Marvin was talking about things you've always wanted to do, upgrades in technology, whatever. So there are some things you can do related to improving your business for that other 0.5, but 80% of it, 2% of it has to be going towards payroll. And if you use it for those purposes, it's completely forgivable. Completely forgivable. If you don't use all of it, like if you have an extra 500 or 5,000 or something that doesn't go towards payroll that was supposed to go towards payroll, Nobody's going to arrest you. There's no fine. It's not a big deal. You're not in trouble. You just have to pay interest on that extra amount. So that extra amount becomes a loan. It's not forgivable. It's really simple. This is an amazing benefit. I'm going to give you each a question. There is a right answer to this question. Who should be applying for one of these PPPs? If you're a small business, which small businesses should be trying to get the PPP, the forgivable loan?
I'll jump in first. I would say the ones that are being impacted, the ones who are considering downsizing, whose revenues have been significantly reduced or eliminated, they should be looking to do it first. I say that first. The other ones who should probably secondary is the ones who perceive a loss, that they can look down the pipe and they say it hasn't hit me yet because my business is kind of dwindling. If they see that, I think those are the two. Those would be my two answers. I'll let Mercedes jump in.
What would you say, Mercedes? Because I tricked you guys, or I prompted you by saying there is a right answer to this. I was speaking to the banker who's doing these loans, and he and I came to a realization that. But what do you think, Mercedes? What do you think?
I definitely agree with Marvin's perspective. Again, businesses that have been impacted and ones that can see this coming. The only other, since you said it might be a trick question that I would throw out there, businesses. I know there's a magical number about 500 employees, and so or less.
That's true.
So I would just say again, if it's businesses that have less than 500 employees, whether they've currently been impacted or like Marvin said, they can see it coming. If you have less than 500, you should probably look into it.
Yeah. Well, so here's the answer to the question. Who should apply for this? Everybody. It's free money. It's a forgivable loan. I was talking to the banker who's one of our clients about just trying to gain information. And literally I was asking him on behalf of our clients. We have a lot of small businesses that are clients. And I was asking him like information about how they should be doing this, and he said, why wouldn't you do it yourself? And I said, I think our firm is fine. I don't think we need this. And he said, every small business should be doing this. It's a stimulus package. So this is something that everybody can and should participate in. So it's a great opportunity. If it's used correctly, it should stimulate the economy, which is a fantastic tool. Hey, I want to wrap up our time real quickly, just because we are drawing short, and I want to make sure that we are respectful of everybody's time here. So I do want to say, again, if you have questions for Marvin about businesses and how they can survive and thrive in this environment, if you have questions for Dr. Jacobson, maybe related to separating the facts from the myths. If you have questions for Mercedes or questions for Mercedes, he has a YouTube channel, and you may have seen some of those videos out there, Minute with Mercedes. I would encourage you to subscribe to those. Questions for 401ks and how you can actually get what's called the CRD, the coronavirus related distributions. Any of those types of questions, you can email those directly to myself or to Mercedes. And so our contact information right here, troy@phdfirm.com. Mercedes' email was on the very first slide. There's also a toll-free number, our website. But we're gathering information, gathering questions so that we can answer those on our next webinar. I thank you so much for your time today, Marvin and Mercedes. And I do look forward to our next broadcast, which will actually include Dr. Ryan Jacobson. So let us know what your questions are for him related to the coronavirus. Until then, you guys be safe, be well, and I hope you guys continue to survive as well as thrive in this environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Troy.